I stood at her grave with everything, billions in my bank, power beyond measure, an empire that touched the sky. But I'd give it all, every last cent, just to tell the woman buried 6 feet below that I was sorry, that I was a fool, that I chose wrong. If you've ever made a choice you'd regret forever, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story will haunt you long after it ends. My name is Lawrence Bennett. I'm 45 years old, and I own one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. My net worth is somewhere around $8 billion, though I stopped counting years ago. Money loses its meaning when you have too much of it. I live alone in a penthouse that costs more per month than most people make in a year. I eat dinner by myself most nights. I wake up to silence, and I have no one to blame but myself. This isn't a story about how I built my empire. It's a story about how I destroyed the only thing that ever really mattered. It's about two women, a choice I made 15 years ago, and a truth I learned far too late. Let me take you back. I was 30 years old, and my company had just gone public. Overnight, I went from comfortable to obscenely wealthy. The world opened up in ways I'd never imagined. Suddenly, I was invited to galas, charity events, exclusive parties where champagne flowed like water, and everyone wanted to know me. It was intoxicating. I'd spent my 20s working 100-hour weeks, building something from nothing, and now I was finally being recognized for it. During those years, there was someone who'd been by my side through everything. Her name was Claire. She'd been my executive assistant for 3 years by that point. Claire was the kind of person you could easily overlook. She wore simple clothes, no makeup most days, kept her hair in a messy bun. She was quiet, efficient, almost invisible in the way she moved through the office. But she was always there, always. Claire knew things about me that no one else did. She knew I took my coffee black with just a hint of cinnamon. She knew my mother's birthday, my father's death anniversary, the exact way I liked my files organized. When I worked late, which was almost every night, she'd order dinner and eat with me, working on her laptop while I reviewed documents. We'd talk about everything and nothing. She made me laugh during the hardest times. When my mother had emergency surgery, Claire was the one who sat with me in the hospital waiting room at 3 in the morning, not saying anything, just being there. I thought she was just really good at her job. I thought that's what assistants did. Then I met Natalia. It was at a charity gala, one of those events where everyone's dressed to impress, and the room smells like old money and expensive perfume. I was talking to potential investors when she walked in. Natalia was the kind of beautiful that stops conversations, tall, elegant, with this effortless sophistication that seemed to radiate from her. She was an art gallery curator, daughter of a European diplomat, and she knew exactly how to work a room. When she talked to you, you felt like the most important person in the world. We started dating, and suddenly, my life looked different. Photographers followed us. We appeared in magazines. People whispered when we walked into restaurants. Natalia knew all the right people, said all the right things, looked perfect on my arm. Dating her felt like winning, like I'd finally arrived at the level where I was supposed to be. My business partner pulled me aside one day. He said, "Lawrence, you know Claire's in love with you, right?" I laughed, actually laughed. "Claire, come on. She's Claire. She's my assistant." He shook his head but didn't push it. I wish he had. After 6 months with Natalia, I decided to propose. I was planning this elaborate proposal in the French Riviera, with photographers strategically placed to capture the moment. My mother met both women before I made my final decision. She told me Claire had a good heart. She called Natalia very impressive. I took that as approval for Natalia. I didn't hear what my mother was really trying to tell me. The night before I left for France, Claire was working late with me on a merger deal. She was eating crackers from the vending machine for dinner. Again, I almost told her about my plans. Almost. But then I looked at her, sitting there in her wrinkled blouse, with her reading glasses sliding down her nose. And I thought, she deserves better than this life anyway. better than 70-hour weeks and vending machine dinners. I convinced myself I was doing her a favor by not pursuing anything. I proposed to Natalia on a yacht at sunset. It was perfect. The photos went viral. We trended on social media. Everyone said we were the perfect couple. Claire saw the news online like everyone else. She came to work the next day and congratulated me. Her voice was steady, professional, but I noticed her hands shook when she handed me my coffee. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying, but I didn't ask. I was too caught up in wedding planning and media interviews to pay attention. 2 weeks later, Claire resigned. She said she was pursuing other opportunities. I was annoyed. The timing was terrible, with the merger still pending. I offered her more money, a better title, anything to make her stay. She just smiled sadly and said, "Some things aren't about money, Lawrence." I didn't understand what she meant. Her last day, she left a sealed envelope on my desk. I was in back-to-back meetings and didn't open it. Later, I couldn't find it. I assumed she'd taken it with her, or it had been thrown away. I didn't think about it again. I was too busy planning a $4 million wedding. The wedding was everything Natalia wanted. Tuscany, 500 guests, featured in Vanity Fair. She looked like a princess, and I looked like the luckiest man alive. In the photos, we're both smiling. But if you look closely at my eyes, you can see something's missing. I just didn't know what yet. The marriage started falling apart almost immediately. After we said, "I do," Natalia changed. Or maybe she just stopped pretending. She was cold, distant. She spent more time on her phone than talking to me. She redecorated our entire home, erasing everything that was personally mine, turning it into something that looked like a hotel. Beautiful, but empty. When my mother visited, Natalia was always conveniently busy. She spent 6 months of every year in Europe, supposedly maintaining her career, leaving me alone in our mansion. I threw myself into work to avoid facing what my life had become. I built the company bigger, made more money, won more awards. But every night I came home to silence, to a wife who was physically present maybe half the time, and emotionally present never. 3 years into our marriage, I saw her at a restaurant I wasn't supposed to be at. She was with a younger man, her personal trainer, I later found out. They weren't just having dinner, they were intimate in a way she'd never been with me. When I confronted her that night, she didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "Did you really think I married you for love?" she said, her voice flat and cold. "Look in the mirror, Lawrence. You're not exactly a romantic hero. You're a workaholic who's married to his company." She lit a cigarette and blew smoke in my direction. "I gave you what you wanted, a beautiful wife for your magazine covers and society events. You gave me what I wanted, access to your credit card and your social circle. It was a transaction. Don't act surprised that there was no love in it." The divorce was brutal, public, expensive. She walked away with $400 million. The tabloids had a field day. Every detail of our marriage was dissected in the media. I won the empire but lost whatever dignity I had left. I was 38, jaded, and more alone than I'd ever been. That's when the haunting began. I couldn't stop thinking about Claire. Late at night, memories would surface. The way she'd celebrate my victories like they were her own. How she'd cried with relief when my mother came through surgery safely. The time she worked 36 hours straight to help me prepare for an FDA hearing because she believed in what we were doing. The way she'd look at me sometimes when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Oh God, the way she'd looked at me. I'd been so blind, so incredibly stupid. She'd never asked me for anything. Not a raise, not a favor, not recognition. She'd just loved me. Quietly, completely, and I'd been too obsessed with appearances to see it. I tried to find her. She wasn't on social media. Her old number was disconnected. I contacted every former colleague. No one knew where she'd gone. It was like she'd vanished from the earth. The not knowing was torture. I needed to tell her I was sorry, that I'd been wrong, that I finally understood. Then, during an office renovation, a worker found something behind my desk. The envelope. Claire's envelope from 7 years ago. My hands shook as I opened it. The letter was handwritten, her neat script, filling 2 pages. I can recite every word from memory now. It said, "Dear Lawrence, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I can't watch you marry someone else. I know you never saw me that way. I was just part of the furniture, reliable Claire, who kept your schedule and remembered your coffee order. But I saw you, the real you, the man who cried when the experimental drug saved that little girl, who visits your father's grave every Sunday, who's terrified of failing the people who depend on you. I loved you for 3 years. Not your money, God, never your money. Just you. I hope she makes you happy. I really do. You deserve love, Lawrence, even if it isn't mine. Be well, Claire." I read it 50 times that night. Each word was a knife. She'd loved me for 3 years. And I'd laughed when someone suggested it. I'd chosen a woman who saw me as a bank account over a woman who saw my soul. I hired private investigators. It took them 3 weeks to find her. She'd moved to a small coastal town 6 hours away. She'd opened a bookshop cafe. She'd married a local school teacher 2 years after leaving me. They had a daughter. The investigators' report said she seemed happy. I drove to that town without telling anyone. I parked across from her bookshop and just watched through the window. She was laughing, her daughter on her hip, surrounded by books and warm light. Her husband came up behind her and kissed her forehead. And the way she smiled at him, it broke something inside me. She looked radiant, not plain at all. She'd never been plain. I'd just been too blind to see her. She spotted me on the street the next day. There was a moment of shock in her eyes. Then something else. Sadness, maybe, or pity. We had an awkward conversation on the sidewalk. She was kind but guarded. I wanted to tell her everything. About the letter, about my regret, about how I'd give anything to go back. But the words stuck in my throat. Her husband appeared, protective but polite. Her daughter called for her. "Mama, come back inside." That one word, "Mama," shattered whatever hope I'd been foolishly holding on to. Her husband, secure in his relationship, actually suggested we get coffee. We sat in her cafe, this cozy place filled with books and the smell of fresh pastries, and I tried to apologize. Claire stopped me. "Lawrence, don't. Please." Her voice was gentle but firm. "I'm happy now. I have a good life. Let's leave the past where it belongs." I had to ask. I couldn't help myself. Did I ever have a chance? She smiled, and it was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. Every single day for 3 years. I left that town and drove home in silence. The truth settled over me like a burial shroud. Some mistakes don't get second chances. Some choices, once made, can never be undone. That was 7 years ago. I'm 45 now. I've dated models, actresses, socialites. I've built my wealth even higher. I've won every award my industry offers. But every woman I meet is measured against a memory, against a woman who brought me coffee and knew my soul better than anyone ever has or ever will. I keep Claire's letter in my desk drawer. I read it sometimes, torturing myself with what could have been. I visit my father's grave every Sunday, just like she remembered I did. Last week, I saw a woman with her daughter in the park, and for one heartbreaking moment, I thought it was Claire. It wasn't. Here's what I learned too late. There are 2 kinds of beauty in this world. There's the kind that makes people turn and stare, that looks perfect in photographs, that opens doors and stops traffic. And then there's the kind that sees you at your worst and stays. That brings you dinner when you're drowning in work. That celebrates your victories and mourns your losses like they're their own. That loves you not for what you have, but for who you are. I chose the first kind. I lost the second, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I had everything a man could want, except the thing that mattered. The woman who loved me when I was just Lawrence. Not the billionaire, not the empire builder, just me. A woman who never asked for anything except the chance to stand beside me. And I was too stupid, too shallow, too obsessed with how things looked to see what was right in front of me. They say you don't know what you have until it's gone. But that's not quite right. I knew what I had. I just didn't think it was enough. I wanted the woman who looked perfect on my arm. I got her, and I lost everything that actually mattered. If you're watching this and there's someone in your life who truly sees you, not your status, not your money, not your appearance, don't be me. Don't choose the glitter over the gold. Don't wait until they're gone to realize they were the best thing that ever happened to you. Don't learn this lesson the way I did. Because some mistakes you live with forever, some people you don't get back, and some choices haunt you every single day for the rest of your life. I still check on Claire, sometimes, through mutual connections who don't know I'm asking. I see photos of her family, her growing daughter, her smiling husband. That could have been my life, should have been my life, but I chose wrong. And now I live with that choice, alone, in a penthouse worth millions, with everything money can buy and nothing that matters. That's the price of being blind when someone loved you with their whole heart. That's the cost of choosing wrong. If this story made you feel something, hit that like button. Subscribe if you believe in choosing real love over superficial beauty. And comment below. Have you ever let the right person go? Drop your story. Maybe it'll help someone else not make the same mistake I did. Because trust me, this is not a lesson you want to learn the hard way.